The matter of our escape is already known to Guemu, and now Imo Guang has also lost contact. He will catch up very soon. There is no way for us to conceal our tracks. What matters now is buying time and reaching the baleful cleansing pool as quickly as possible, Hanli said, breaking the silence. Since we no longer have any reservations, the fastest method is to soul search those 2 Juyo children. Please wait here for a moment. I'll be back shortly, Shi Chuankong said with a nod. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed and vanished from where he stood. Seeing this, Han Li and the others hurried to the passage exit and looked toward the shore of the karmic fire lake. The 2 young children were still cultivating with their eyes closed. They seemed completely unaware of the spatial fluctuations appearing behind them and made no movement at all. Shi Chuankong emerged silently from thin air behind them. A faint smile curled at the corner of his mouth as he reached out with both arms, grabbing toward the backs of their necks. Han Li was watching from a distance when a figure suddenly blurred before his eyes. Taihun had flashed past from the side and appeared behind Shi Chuankong in an instant. A scarlet glow lit up on her raised palm as she chopped down toward the back of his neck as well. Everyone was shocked, and Hussan almost cried out. There was only a muffled bang. Shi Chuankong felt a tremendous force strike him from behind, smashing him heavily to the ground. His body rolled several times before crashing into a distant mountain wall. Before he could even turn over and get up, his expression changed abruptly. Only then did Han Li and the others see clearly that a gray shadow was clinging to Shi Chuankong's back. Taihun's earlier strike had been aimed at it. Shi Chuankong reacted extremely quickly. The moment he realized something was wrong, crackling sounds rang out from his body, and a powerful invisible force burst from every pore. It turned into a tremendous impact that swept out in all directions. The gray shadow clinging tightly to his back was struck by that force and floated outward lightly like a kite. But very soon, it pressed itself back onto him again. Taihun's expression turned grave. With a wave of her hand, a scarlet chain immediately shot out with a clanging sound, stabbing toward Shi Chuankong's back like a spirit snake. The gray shadow seemed rather wary of it. It actually took the initiative to leave Shi Chuankong's body and drifted down to the side. The 2 Juyo children froze at the sight, yet showed little panic. They both darted behind the gray shadow. Yuluo, how dare you help outsiders abduct members of my Juyo clan? The gray shadow gradually solidified, revealing the figure of a Juyo clansman with a deathly pale face and a hooked nose. His sharp thin voice rang out in a stern shout. "In Xiao," Taihun said, her brows tightly furrowed. At the same time, she transmitted her voice to Han Li and the others. This man cultivates the laws of illusory void and is at the peak of the Tai stage. The laws he controls are extremely strange, and he excels at concealment, ambushes, and assassinations. Be careful. We cannot delay for too long. Everyone attack together and end this quickly, Han Li said with a slight frown. Elder In Xiao, forgive me, Taihun said coldly. Her hands suddenly trembled, and more than 10 scarlet chains shot out from her sleeves, crisscrossing as they enveloped In Xiao. In Xiao gave a cold laugh. Instead of retreating, he advanced and charged straight into the chains. The moment all the chains pierced into his body, his form rippled like the surface of water. The chains seemed to have struck water and passed through him without the slightest obstruction. Amid a series of metallic clinks, they all pinned themselves into the ground. In Xiao passed straight through the chains, moving with astonishing speed. He raised a palm and slapped it down toward the top of Taihun's head. Spiral gray light flashed continuously in his palm, and waves of tearing force spread from it like a gray vortex. A trace of panic flashed through Taihun's eyes. She tugged at the scarlet chains with both hands, wanting to pull them back, only to discover that they seemed to have been locked into the ground and would not move at all. Just as the gray-lit palm was about to shatter her skull, a sly smile of success flickered in Taihun's eyes. She raised a finger and drew it across the space between her brows. A dark red blood mark immediately appeared there. The flesh parted to both sides, revealing a dark red demonic eye. When In Xiao saw this third demonic eye, his expression changed drastically, and he immediately tried to fly backward. However, the demonic eye on Taihun's brow had already lit up. A sheet of dark red light surged out from within it, sweeping toward his face. In that instant, Yin Zhao's soul seemed to have been struck by a bolt of lightning and shook violently. His body swayed from side to side, as if he could no longer control himself and was about to collapse. At the same time, Han Li's figure suddenly appeared behind him. Golden lightning flashed violently across the azure bamboo cloud swarm sword in his hand as he stabbed straight toward the back of Yin Zhao's head. But at that moment, an unexpected change occurred. Yin Zhao, who had appeared to be swaying uncontrollably, suddenly tilted his neck to the left, just barely avoiding Han Li's sword. A blur of light flashed at the back of his head, revealing another deathly pale face. It was still Yin Zhao. "Hey, I knew there were more than just you two." His head suddenly thrust forward, and his body seemed to split into two figures. One peeled away from the original body and shot toward Han Li, holding a black dagger that stabbed straight for Han Li's throat. Han Li seemed to have been prepared for this. Golden light flashed behind him, and the mantra treasured wheel whistled out, spinning rapidly as it released waves of golden light. Yin Zhao's arm had only just stabbed out when it fell into the golden rays. It immediately seemed to freeze, and its speed slowed sharply. Han Li did not need to dodge. He reached out with one hand and clamped Yin Zhao's neck, then lifted his sword with the other hand and thrust it straight into Yin Zhao's head. However, the instant the sword tip pierced in, Han Li's heart jolted. He sensed something was wrong and hurriedly withdrew his hand, his body dropping downward. But immediately afterward, a sharp pain came from his lower abdomen. When Han Li lowered his head, he saw that from the lower abdomen of the Yin Zhao he was holding, yet another Yin Zhao had emerged. This one held a black dagger, which had stabbed into the area above his dantian. A smile curled at the corner of the Yin Zhao who had struck Han Li. The dagger in his hand suddenly slanted upward. A thick blade formed from baleful qi erupted, slicing Han Li directly in half. His organs and intestines spilled to the ground in pieces, and a great spray of blood burst outward. Yin Zhao withdrew his dagger and stuck out his tongue to lick it. Just as he was about to laugh in satisfaction, Han Li's voice suddenly rang out. "Fellow Taoist, sure, are you ready?" "I am," Shi Chuankong replied. "Mirror flowers, water moon, disperse," Han Li shouted softly, and the divine ability of words of law heaven and earth was immediately withdrawn. Yin Zhao felt his mind sway. When he looked again, Han Li was nowhere to be seen. He was alone, holding his dagger and still in the posture of licking blood from it. Meanwhile, the two Juyo children had each been grabbed by one of Husan's hands and were already unconscious. "No!" Yin Zhao cried out in alarm and was about to rush forward, only to discover that the space around him had somehow twisted and warped. His entire body seemed to be crushed tightly by invisible spatial forces. Not only could he not move, he could not even turn his body incorporeal. Not far behind him, Shi Chuankong was forming a strange hand seal with one hand while gripping the strings of a silver pipa tightly. His face was pale and all 10 fingers were soaked in blood, but he did not relax in the slightest. "Fellow Taoist Li, hurry and act. I can't hold on much longer," Shi Chuankong shouted anxiously. As soon as his voice fell, a streak of lightning shot over. The instant Shi Chuankong withdrew the spatial suppression, a sword pierced through Yin Zhao's chest. Almost at the same time, a massive pitch-black torch dragon claw reached down from above and clamped onto Yin Zhao's head, as if it were about to crush both his skull and soul together. "Wait," Han Li quickly called out. As he spoke, his hands moved repeatedly. One azure bamboo cloud swarm sword after another appeared in his grasp. Evil warding divine lightning flashed over them, as he stabbed them one after another into Yin Zhao's vital acupoints. Yin Zhao's entire body was ravaged by lightning, and he screamed miserably. Shi Chuankong's expression still looked somewhat ugly, but he let out a long breath. Just now, Taihan had first used her divine ability to shake Yin Zhao's soul, while Han Li had seized the chance to use words of law heaven and earth to buy Shi Chuankong time to activate the silver pipa with a secret technique. Only then had they managed to subdue Yin Zhao, who was at the peak of the Tai stage, while minimizing the commotion from the battle as much as possible. However, Shi Chuankong's previous injuries had not yet healed, and this time he had forcibly activated the silver pipa again, suffering no small backlash. After Yin Zhao was restrained, Bailey Yen still did not relax. He continued to clamp Yin Zhao's head tightly. Master, you consumed too much in the karmic fire passage earlier. Leave the soul searching to me. Please rest for a moment, Taihun said when she saw Hanli about to step forward. Very well, Hanli said with a nod. Taihun walked forward. She raised her hand, joined two fingers and touched the space between her brows. A dark red blood mark appeared there, the flesh parting to both sides again and revealing the dark red demonic eye. A sheet of dark red light surged out from the demonic eye, sweeping over Yin Xiao and the two children at the same time. Even with his powerful spiritual sense, Hanli knew he absolutely could not soul search three people simultaneously. The two unconscious children suddenly opened their eyes at the same time. Their bodies swayed as they sat up, but their gray eyes had no trace of vitality. They were as wooden as puppets on strings. Yin Xiao instinctively resisted for a moment, but the light in his eyes also scattered. A moment later, the red light in Taihun's demonic eye suddenly withdrew. The two children's eyes closed once more, and they fainted again. How is it? Hanli asked. The baleful cleansing pool is the sacred ground of their clan. These two children have not yet undergone soul cleansing by karmic fire, so they cannot truly be considered Juyou clansmen yet, and they have not actually been there. Yin Zhao's spiritual sense is not weak. Even restrained, he was still able to resist my soul searching. However, I have roughly figured out the terrain of the soul cleansing area, Taihun quickly said. That will do, Hanli said with a nod. In that case, this fellow is useless now, isn't he? Bailey Yin said. Before anyone could answer, his hand suddenly clenched. The pitch-black torch dragon claw instantly closed, and with a bang Yin Zhao's head was crushed. Don't! Taihun cried out in alarm, but she was a step too late. Fellow Taoist Taihun, you? Bailey Yin looked at Taihun in confusion. Hanli glanced at Taihun and understood. Taihun was willing to help him, but that did not mean she was truly willing to betray the Juyou domain lord. After all, the other party had shown her great kindness, and she was also unwilling to kill or harm members of the Juyou clan. Fellow Taoist Bailey, unless there is no other choice, let us not casually kill Juyou clansmen, Hanli said with a sigh. I understand. Fellow Taoist Taihun, I apologize, Bailey Yin said, belatedly realizing the matter as he cupped his fist toward Taihun. Taihun said nothing and only gave a non-committal nod. Then how should we deal with these two little ones? Husan asked, lifting the two unconscious Juyou children. Taihun was about to speak when Hanli said, for now, imprison them inside my grotto heaven treasure. Since the two of them were personally protected by a Tai-level elder like Yin Xiao, they are surely no ordinary children. Perhaps they may become a life-saving talisman for us later. After saying this, he waved his hand. A silver light gate opened, and Husan took the chance to throw the two children into the bamboo building. Before Hanli could close the grotto heaven gate, his expression suddenly changed. Damn it! Guemu has caught up. As he spoke, he waved his hand and closed the silver light gate. This way, Taihun said hurriedly with a frown. With that, she turned and took the lead, darting into the depths of the passage where they had hidden earlier. Hanli and the others followed closely behind her and entered it. The passage stretched inward, and the terrain gradually sloped upward. At the end of the incline was a T-shaped intersection. After briefly identifying the way, Taihun turned left and led everyone away quickly. Less than 10 breaths after they left, at a passage exit by the karmic fire lake, a thick mass of baleful chi surged out. It stopped and condensed by the embankment, revealing a black figure within it. It was Guemu. In order to pursue Hanli and the others, he could no longer care about the rule that non-Juyou clansmen were not allowed to enter the soul cleansing area without permission. After sending a message to Yin Su, he left behind the puppets and ghost slaves, bringing only the furry little white beast with him as he charged in alone. The moment he reached the lakeshore, he saw Yin Zhao's shattered head. His eyes immediately widened, and he let out a thunderous roar. A powerful aura erupted from his body and swept out in all directions, causing the karmic fire lake to rumble loudly. Huge pillars of fire shot into the air one after another, reaching all the way to the vaulted ceiling above. You dared kill one of my clan and abduct the sacrificial children. I will grind your bones to dust and use you as fertilizer for my ghost vines. Find them for me. Where are they? Guemu said through gritted teeth, grabbing the little beast from his shoulder. His grip was heavy, and the white little beast's spine was squeezed painfully. It bared its teeth and grimaced, its eyes filled with fear, yet it did not dare make the slightest sound. It only trembled and wrinkled its nose. Its eyes suddenly lit up, and a white ripple projected from them, rapidly spreading in all directions. After only a short while it began squeaking. Its two front paws pointed toward a passage entrance on the opposite side of the karmic fire lake. It was exactly the passage Han Li and the others had escaped into. Very good. Guemu laughed darkly. After saying this, he looked down at the snow-white little beast in his hand, whose bones he had nearly crushed. A look of affection immediately appeared on his face. He hurriedly loosened his grip and gently smoothed its fur. Then his figure suddenly shot forward. Very soon, he turned into a cloud of black mist and surged into that passage. Han Li's group followed closely behind Taihun, turning left and right through the passage as they fled rapidly forward. The underground passages in the soul-cleansing area were especially complicated. They were like mouse holes and ant nests, crisscrossing in all directions, with terrain that rose and fell without the slightest pattern. After turning into one passage, they sprinted several hundred zhang down a slope, only to find a mountain wall directly in front of them. What is going on? Why is this a dead end? Shi Chuankong asked urgently, his expression tightening. A false wall. Hurry through, Taihun shouted. Her steps did not stop at all. She directly crashed into the mountain wall ahead. With a rumble, the wall immediately shifted backward several feet, revealing a gap about 3 feet wide. The group hurriedly slipped through and entered. Behind the mountain wall was a rather spacious underground hall. They had only just entered the hall when an urgent shout rang out. Elder Yin Fu, we've found them. As soon as those words fell, not far away, a squad of Juyo cultivators led by an elder at the peak of the Tai stage rushed toward them. Guemu is still chasing us from behind. We cannot fight them. Leave quickly, Han Li shouted. Escape light instantly lit up around the group as they shot directly toward the passage exit at the other end of the hall. How could the Geo cultivators let them go? One by one they shouted curses and used their own techniques, chasing after them. Have a taste of this too. Bailey Yin grinned and casually tossed something backward. Several black spheres shaped like sweet potatoes flew from his hand and fell behind them. After the black spheres landed, they bounced upward one after another, and black light lit up across their surfaces. Boom boom boom. A series of deafening explosions erupted. Huge masses of black flame burst from the black sweet potatoes. First they contracted violently, then suddenly expanded, turning into a raging sea of fire that surged in all directions. Han Li and the others had already flown far enough away, but they were still struck by the powerful shockwave. Their backs burned painfully, and their chests felt so stifled that they wanted to vomit. The Juyo clansmen pursuing them were naturally in an even worse state. They had not even had the chance to use these karmic fire baleful thunders themselves before Bailey Yen threw several of them out at once, swallowing all of them completely. The echoes in the underground hall continued to rumble, and the waves of karmic fire did not dissipate for a long time. Just as Han Li and the others flew out of the hall, a figure flew in from a passage entrance on the left. He wore a black robe and had a rather thin figure. His face was gaunt and refined, making him look like an elderly accountant. No one who saw him would easily connect him with a mighty cultivator at the mid-stage of the Great Encompassment Realm. Yet in reality he was none other than Yin Su, the Great Encompassment cultivator guarding the soul-cleansing area. At this moment the old man was also alone. He hovered in midair, looking down at the miserable state of his clansmen. Within his gray-white eyes, it was as if two storms were brewing, with gray cloud-like wisps constantly spinning inside. At that moment, another figure flew out from the passage behind him. It was Guemu, who had been pursuing them. Elder Yin Su, did you manage to intercept those people? Guemu called out before he had even drawn close. I was one step too late, Yin Su said with a gloomy expression and a cold snort. Guemu knew that Yin Su was blaming him for failing to guard the 100 treasures area, and allowing Han Li and the others to get in, so he did not argue. I didn't have time to explain the details earlier. Those people killed Yin Xiao by the karmic fire lake and abducted 2 sacrificial children, Guemu said. What? What were you and Ingua doing? You actually let them take the sacrificial children. Insu's expression grew even darker when he heard this, and he shouted sharply. Well, Elder Ingua had originally already captured them. It was only because Yuluo suddenly rebelled that they had a chance to escape the ghost prison and make it all the way here, Guemu said. Yuluo, such a major incident happened, and where is Ingua? Where is he? Insu frowned and asked again. Elder Ingua exhausted himself too much earlier, and has temporarily entered seclusion, but I have already sent someone to inform him. I expect he will arrive soon, Guemu said. He still has the mind to enter seclusion? We are currently at the critical juncture of the Three-Domain Alliance meeting. If the Domain Lord learns about the sacrificial children, none of us will escape punishment, Insu said angrily. Elder Insu, we absolutely cannot report this matter to the Domain Lord like that. You and Elder Ingua may only suffer some physical punishment and get through it, but I will have my 5 organs dug out and be refined into a puppet. Guemu's expression changed as he hurriedly said. Then hurry and catch up to them. Clean up this mess, Insu said with tightly furrowed brows. Many thanks, Elder Insu, Guemu said gratefully. After saying this, the escape lights around the two of them linked together. Their figures shot forward and instantly vanished from where they had stood. Meanwhile, Taihun was leading the others swiftly along a broad passage sloping downward. Hanli abruptly looked back, and his scalp immediately tingled. Behind them was pitch darkness. The passage they had just flown through had completely disappeared. Purple light flashed in his eyes as he activated his geodemonic eyes. With one glance he saw a vast black shadow filling the entire passage and surging toward them. Wherever it passed, everything seemed to be devoured by darkness and vanished completely. Damn it! Elder Insu has caught up too. Taihun also noticed the movement behind them and cried out in alarm. The moment her cry rang out, the black shadow chasing them became even more rampant. Its speed suddenly doubled, and in moments it was about to catch up to them. Hanli sensed the terrifying aura within the black shadow, and knew it was definitely not something they could deal with. Gritting his teeth, he forcefully activated the mantra-treasured wheel in reverse inside his body. Immediately afterward, he swept both arms out. 2 sheets of azure light surged from his sleeves, wrapping around the others. His figure flashed suddenly, and they vanished from where they were. A moment later, Han Li and the others abruptly appeared at the mouth of a passage. With a sudden rush, they all flew out through the entrance. Before their figures had even landed, Han Li swept his gaze around and discovered that they had appeared inside an enormous underground cavern. The cavern was tens of thousands of zhang wide. The terrain below was extremely flat, and not far away stood a large white plaza. Behind the plaza was a cluster of strange domed palaces. Outside the palace complex shone a layer of red light, with black runes faintly flickering across it. It was clearly a sealing formation. What is this place? Why is it sealed off with restrictions? Hanli asked in confusion. I saw this place in Yinzhao's memories. I only know that it is an extremely important location. Even the Domain Lord attaches great importance to it. Normally, anyone is strictly forbidden from entering, and no fighting is allowed nearby, Taihun said after thinking for a moment. Not good. Insu is catching up again. No, Guemu is with him too. Hanli suddenly raised his brows and said urgently. Are they dogs? Why are they biting so tightly? If we keep running like this, it's no solution. At worst, we fight to the death. Bailey Yen spat and said. My earlier consumption was too great. I can still use my spatial divine ability one more time and teleport everyone to open some distance from them. But at this speed, it indeed won't delay them for long, Shichuan Kong said with a sigh. It seems we can only make a desperate stand here. But the gap between us and them is too great. Our chances of victory are rather low, Husan also sighed. Don't rush to burn the boats yet. Since Yin Chengquan strictly forbids fighting near this palace, this must be an important place of the Joyo clan that cannot be easily damaged. If they truly have misgivings, we may as well enter the palace and hide inside for now, Hanli said, his eyes flashing. That method is feasible. Master truly thinks thoroughly, Taihun said, her eyes brightening. The others naturally had no objections, so Han Li and the group quickly arrived in front of the palace. Through the light curtain restriction, They could see that the two palace doors were tightly shut. Two huge and strange relief carvings were engraved on them. The relief on the left door was filled with countless white bones. Skulls of all sizes and shapes were piled layer upon layer from the bottom all the way to the upper middle section. At the top was a sinister great chair pieced together from various bones. Seated boldly upon it was a Juyo man holding a giant scythe, his arms spread open and his face full of intoxication. On the right door were all kinds of terrifying beasts with vicious forms. They slaughtered and devoured one another, with blood flowing like rivers. Just looking at it made one feel as if an intense stench of blood were rushing straight at them. The corpses of all kinds of terrifying beasts were similarly piled up to the top of the door. There a strange giant beast was carved in an odd crawling posture. Dense smoke coiled around its whole body, huge horns grew from its head, and its bloody maw was opened wide, as if it wanted to devour every beast. One's heart trembled just looking at it. This restriction does not look simple. Breaking it will probably require quite a bit of time, Shi Chuankong said with tightly furrowed brows as he walked back and forth along the light curtain outside the palace and examined the runes engraved on the ground. There is no time. They are already here, Han Li said, his gaze sharpening. As soon as he finished speaking, dark red light flashed in his hand, followed by a flicker of black light in his palm. A long black saber appeared. Husan's gaze swept over it and landed on the sinister two-headed fox relief crouching on the saber guard. The corner of his eye twitched slightly, and a complicated look flashed in his eyes as he looked toward Han Li. Han Li, however, had no time to notice his abnormal reaction. Instead, he connected with Shi Qingho inside the blood saber through his mind and transmitted his voice. Fellow Taoist Shi, the situation is urgent. I have no choice but to borrow your power to break the sealing formation before us. Please lend me your aid. Boy Li, I have a feeling that whatever is sealed inside is probably not something easy to deal with. Have you truly thought this through? Do you really want to break the restriction here? Shi Qingho's voice rang out in Han Li's sea of consciousness. The two chasing us from behind are not easy to deal with either. Time is tight. Please help me, fellow Taoist Shi. Han Li immediately replied without hesitation. Very well. Since you have decided, I will say no more. You only need to use all your strength to activate the blood saber and slash at the restriction. Leave the rest to me, Shi Qingho said after a long silence. Many thanks. After thanking him, Han Li gripped the saber hilt with both hands and lifted the blade. It traced an arc before him, the edge held upright beside his ear. His eyes narrowed slightly as he stared at the light curtain before him. The aura around his body began to contract rapidly, and his entire presence abruptly changed. Seeing this, Shi Chuankong and the others all raised their brows slightly and retreated several steps, pulling away from Han Li. The look of shock and doubt in Husan's eyes grew even stronger. On the long black saber, the eyes of the two-headed fox relief suddenly lit up with bloody light. In a trance, its appearance seemed to become even more ferocious. Wisps of dark red light emerged from the blade, making it appear especially strange and demonic. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After the rapid contraction, waves of aura stronger than the last began to erupt from Han Li's body, turning into visible rings of air that surged outward and shook the entire underground space with continuous echoes. Inside the passage outside, a cloud of black mist carrying Insu and Guemu surged forward rapidly. Not good. They've gone to the forbidden ground. They seem to be trying to break the restriction, Insu said in alarm and anger. With their strength, even if they join forces, they won't be able to break the profound nether vermilion brightness formation in such a short. Before Guemu could finish speaking, waves of violent tremors came from the front of the passage. Damn it! Insu cried out and light suddenly flashed in his eyes. The speed of the black mist instantly doubled. It flashed to the entrance of the underground space where the palace stood, just in time to see Han Li step forward, swing both arms down, and slash out with the saber strike he had been charging for so long. A violent roar exploded. Dark red light burst brightly from the long black saber. Bloody light surged from the blade and condensed into a massive blood-colored saber shadow over 100 zhang long, which fell upon the light curtain. On the saber shadow, it seemed as if a snow-white two-headed fox were crouching. It turned its head toward Insu and Guemu, revealing a ghostly smile. In the next instant, a violent thunderclap rang out. Countless dark red bolts of lightning erupted from where the saber shadow met the light curtain, forming an extremely irregular screen of lightning. It blasted apart a huge section of the cavern ceiling above the palace, revealing a dim sky beyond. The dark red lightning scattered everywhere like the long whips of a thunder god. Under the impact of the airwaves, it spread open like an umbrella, forming a lightning curtain dozens of zhang wide over the plaza and perfectly cutting Han Li and the others off from pursuit. "It's open!" Shichuan Kong shouted in surprise, his eyes fixed on where the saber shadow had fallen. On the light curtain, runes flickered and dark light rippled. Sure enough, a long narrow opening about 10 zhang in length had appeared. "Go! Get inside quickly," Husan hurriedly said. That saber strike had nearly exhausted all the immortal spiritual power in Han Li's body. After putting away the saber, he immediately felt a wave of emptiness inside him. Bailey Yin and Taihun stepped forward, supporting him from the left and right. Their figures flashed, and they flew into the light curtain. Seeing that Han Li's group had truly broken through the restriction, Yin Su and Guemu's expressions turned extremely ugly. Both of them rushed toward the gap in the restriction, but they were blocked by the lightning curtain. They could only watch helplessly as Han Li and the others pushed open the palace doors and entered. By the time the power of the lightning curtain gradually weakened, the opening in the light curtain had already closed again. The next moment, 2 streaks of escape light shot over from a distance, revealing the figures of Guemu and Yin Su. How is this possible? They actually broke open the restriction. What kind of immortal weapon is that long saber? Guemu said in disbelief at the sight. Now is not the time to discuss that. Damn it. Those people actually fled into the forbidden ground. Hurry and chase them. Yin Su said with an ashen expression, immediately flipping his hand. A streak of black light flew out from his sleeve. It was a black token engraved with the sinister ghost head, and wisps of black light emanated from its entire body. Yin Su rapidly formed hand seals with both hands, and the black token immediately shone brightly. The features of the black ghost beast relief on it wriggled as if it had come alive. Guemu also hurriedly composed himself and helped form hand seals to activate the black token. The light blooming from the black token grew brighter and brighter. The ghost face relief on it wriggled rapidly and swelled to twice its size. 2 dazzling white lights also lit up in its eyes, making it look sinister and terrifying. 2 gray-white beams suddenly shot from the eyes of the ghost face relief and sank into the black light curtain. A crack about a zhang long immediately opened in the black light curtain, then slowly split toward both sides. Although Yin Su and Guemu activated it with all their strength, the change in the black light curtain was still not very fast. Only after more than 10 breaths did it barely form a gap large enough for a person to pass through. Yin Su flipped his hand and put away the ghost face token. With a sway of his figure, he shot through the gap in the restriction, and Guemu immediately followed him inside. As soon as the 2 entered the main hall, however, they found the surroundings dim and as quiet as before. Han Li and the others were already completely gone, clearly having fled deeper into the hall. The 2 exchanged a glance, then immediately transformed into 2 streaks of escape light and pursued them. However, both of them did their utmost to restrain the aura fluctuations around them, as if afraid of disturbing something. Yin Su, this matter is no small thing. Should we report it to the domain lord? Guemu asked with hesitation on his face as they flew. Absolutely not. Do you not know His Excellency's temper? If he learns that we allowed several outsiders into the forbidden ground, we can forget about leaving alive. Have you forgotten what happened to Eldarine Ho back then? Yin Su's expression changed when he heard this, and he immediately lowered his voice. But if we do not report it and those people cause some kind of trouble inside, the punishment will definitely be even heavier. At that point, even wanting to die may become difficult, Guemu said with a shiver, as if recalling something terrifying. They will not. The restrictions inside the forbidden ground are extremely powerful. Even you and I cannot break through them. Those people may think they were clever by fleeing in here, but in truth they have thrown themselves into a trap. We will speak after we catch them. As long as we handle it cleanly, that will be enough, Yin Su said with a contemptuous cold laugh. Very well, Guemu said after a brief hesitation, then nodded. As they spoke, the 2 had already passed through the palace doors and the plaza inside. Behind the plaza were 7 or 8 smaller palaces. Between them were more than a dozen small paths, winding deeper inside. The light within the palace complex was extremely dim. Beyond 100 zhang, the surroundings became hard to see. Moreover, an invisible restrictive force filled the entire place, making it impossible to extend divine sense for investigation. There was still no trace of Han Li and the others here, not even the slightest unusual fluctuation. No one knew where they had fled. Yin Su's pupils contracted slightly, and he raised a hand with a wave. A speck of black light flashed before him and rapidly swelled at a visible speed, transforming into a black round mirror. It spun ceaselessly, spraying out streams of strange black radiance that swept out in all directions. Wherever the black light passed, phantom images abruptly surfaced in the void. Some walked back and forth while others shot past, looking like people who had once passed through this place. Some of these figures were clear, while others were extremely blurred. Among the many figures, Han Li and the others appeared, their forms exceptionally distinct as they sped toward a narrow path. After them, Yin Su and Gui Mu immediately flew in pursuit. Oh! Deep within the Black Palace, Han Li's group was advancing at full speed. The scenery on both sides flew backward rapidly. It consisted of endless palace walls, pavilions, terraces, and towers, making the place look very much like an imperial city. None of them dared fly through the air. They kept close to the ground, weaving forward between the buildings. As they continued deeper in, the light nearby grew increasingly dim. Wisps of black mist faintly lingered in the void, making everything beyond 30 or 40 zhang blurry and indistinct. Their spiritual sense was also unable to leave their bodies very far. With the eyesight of Fox 3 and the others, they could now only barely see a little over 100 zhang away. 2 rays of purple light shot from Han Li's eyes as he activated the 9 nether demon pupils and looked ahead. He could still make out the path before them, but even he could only see about 300 zhang into the distance. Apart from that, there seemed to be some indescribably immense spatial pressure in the void. With Han Li and the others' cultivation bases, it was not enough to injure them, but their speed was greatly reduced. What kind of damned place is this? Why do I feel something is strange about it? Fellow Taoist Crying Soul, have you noticed anything? Fox 3 could not help asking as they rushed forward. No. This is my first time here as well, Crying Soul said, shaking her head. Since fierce fighting is strictly forbidden here, that works greatly in our favor. Why don't we fight the pursuers behind us right here? Fox 3 said again. No. Although this place has such a rule, once it becomes a life and death struggle, the other side's great encompassment cultivators may not obey it. The risk is too great. We cannot gamble our hopes on the enemy. Even if we must fight, we have to find a place that is absolutely advantageous to us. Shi Chuankong immediately rejected the idea with a shake of his head. That makes sense, Fox 3 nodded. As Han Li advanced, his gaze swept over the surroundings, and he suddenly let out a soft sound of surprise. Fellow Taoist Li, did you discover something? Shi Chuankong looked over. No. I only feel that the layout of the surrounding palaces is somewhat profound. It resembles some kind of grand formation. Perhaps this pressure in space has something to do with it, Han Li said thoughtfully. The arrangement of the surrounding palaces, lofts, and other structures looked ordinary on the surface, but in truth it concealed some kind of pattern. Moreover, many restriction runes were engraved on these buildings, and there was an indescribable connection among them. Now that you mention it, that does seem to be the case. It appears this place really is an important forbidden area. But strangely, there isn't a single person guarding it, Bailey Yen said with a nod. Not good. Gui Mu and the others have caught up. They're very fast. Crying Soul's expression suddenly changed as she spoke. The others were startled when they heard this. They did not ask how Crying Soul had sensed the situation behind them, and immediately increased their speed. However, the gap between their cultivation bases and those of Gui Mu's group was far too great. Added to the spatial pressure in the void, even though they were exerting themselves to the utmost, the distance between the two sides continued to shrink. There is a passage ahead leading underground. There is a strange aura inside. Shall we go in? Han Li looked in a certain direction ahead and suddenly spoke. Go in. Let's gamble. Shi Chuankong said through gritted teeth. What inside could possibly be more troublesome than the two fellows chasing us from behind? Fox 3 grinned. Exactly. Since it has come to this, let's go in and take a look. At this point, only by throwing ourselves into a deadly place can we find a thread of life, Bailey Yen said, stealing his heart. Crying Soul had always followed Han Li's lead, so she naturally had no objection. Follow me. Han Li slightly changed direction and flew toward the left front. The others immediately followed. In an instant, they arrived beside a huge artificial mountain several hundred zhang tall. At the base of the mountain was a cave entrance. The cave entrance was quite large, 3 or 4 zhang high. The rocks on both sides inside were pale white and faintly emitted strands of light, making the interior rather bright. As the white glow flickered, it looked quite beautiful. Inside the cave was a long passage that seemed to lead underground. A warm current of air rushed toward them from within. The air was slightly pungent, seemingly carrying the scent of sulfur and lava. The group did not hesitate and immediately flew inside, fleeing deeper into the passage. Just as Han Li and the others disappeared into the underground passage, figures flickered outside the cave entrance, and Guemu and Yin Su appeared. Damn it! They actually fled inside. Do these people know the secret of this place? Impossible. Only the Domain Lord and we great encompassment cultivators know about it. Even Yu Luo doesn't know. Guemu said with an ugly expression. Enough nonsense. Go in and seize them immediately. Yin Su snorted impatiently, flying into the cave entrance. Guemu's face turned cold, and a trace of anger flashed in his eyes. At that moment, the white civet cat in his arms looked up at its master and gave a soft cry. Guemu stroked the civet's head, took a deep breath, and his expression quickly returned to normal. His body then shot inside as well. Han Li and the others advanced through the passage at full speed. There was only one path inside and it rarely curved. The deeper they went, the brighter the light in the cave became, so their progress was quite smooth. Even so, there was not the slightest joy on their faces. A straight path like this was even more suitable for the pursuers behind them. The expressions of the group suddenly changed, and their flying figures stopped. The passage ahead suddenly widened, revealing a huge square space that looked very much like a great hall. It was 30 or 40 zhang across. However, this was already the end. Only on the innermost wall of the great hall was there a tightly shut stone gate. The spatial pressure in the void had also reached a rather terrifying degree here. Dense talismanic patterns were engraved across the stone gate. They emitted several different colors of light, and each light gave off powerful fluctuations, clearly belonging to extremely formidable restrictions. Among them, a silver light was especially dazzling, forming a silver screen of light that covered the stone gate. Ripple-like strands of silver light rose and flowed across the screen, making it look rather magnificent. Similar formation patterns were also engraved on the other walls around the Great Hall, connected with the restrictions on the stone gate to form some rather special kind of restriction. Everyone swept their eyes over the surroundings. They all seemed to think of something, and their expressions instantly turned extremely ugly. Fox 3 gritted his teeth and waved a hand. A dazzling white light shot out. It was a foot-long immortal treasure, snow white all over and shaped like a cone. Judging from the aura it emitted, it was at least 7th grade. White arcs of lightning coiled around the white cone, releasing rumbling thunder. In an instant, it turned into a blurred white phantom and stabbed fiercely at the stone gate. Just before it made contact, Fox 3 urged the incantation gesture in his hand and shouted softly, "Go!" As soon as his voice fell, an earth-shaking thunderclap exploded. A blazing white sun then appeared and abruptly burst apart. Countless dazzling white arcs of lightning erupted in all directions from within, instantly drowning the stone gate and making it impossible to see what was happening inside. Seeing this, purple light flickered in Han Li's eyes, and his brows furrowed. The dazzling blazing white sun quickly faded, and the scene within was soon revealed. The white cone-shaped immortal treasure was embedded against the stone gate. Several restriction lights on the gate flickered slightly, but not even a single mark appeared on it. When everyone saw this, their expressions changed again. The power of the white cone was plain for all to see, yet it had not been able to leave even the slightest trace on the stone gate. "I'm very sorry. I let everyone into this kind of place. It seems we're in deep trouble," Han Li said with a bitter smile. Fellow Taoist Li, there is no need to blame yourself. Entering this place was a decision made by all of us together, so naturally we will bear the consequences together. Besides, continuing to flee like this might not have been a good thing either. Since they have caught up, there is nothing else to be done. Let's fight with everything we have. Fox 3 waved the white cone back and had it circle above his head. He smiled faintly and turned to look at the way they had come. That's right. Those people don't dare engage in intense battle here. But we have no such misgivings. We may not necessarily lose. Bailey Yen also laughed loudly and turned around. A sharp light flashed in Han Li's eyes. He too turned to look in the direction they had come from, golden light faintly appearing around his body. Crying Soul looked at Han Li and stood beside him. Shi Chuankong, however, did not join Han Li and the others in facing the enemy. Instead, he flew down in front of the stone gate and waved a hand after forming an incantation gesture. Silver light flashed before him, and an ancient silver mirror appeared. With another flash, it sprayed out a beam of silver light that shone upon the stone gate. The restrictions on the stone gate immediately fluctuated, especially the silver light screen, which buzzed and trembled without end. Fellow Taoist Shi, could it be that you can break these restrictions? Bailey Yen asked with delight in his eyes. The restrictions here are extremely profound. I do not dare say I can definitely break them. I need some time to study them carefully, Shi Chuankong said ambiguously, shaking his head. Very well. Brother Shi, focus on your research. Leave the pursuers to us. We'll buy you as much time as possible, Fox 3 said with a laugh. Shi Chuankong nodded, then no longer paid attention to them and concentrated on studying the restrictions on the stone gate. Han Li turned his head to glance at Shi Chuankong, then quickly withdrew his gaze and looked toward the passage ahead. They're here. Crying Soul suddenly said softly. Figures blurred in the passage ahead, and Gui Mu and Yin Su appeared. You little rats run quite fast. Yin Su swept his gaze over the hall, his eyes relaxing slightly as he said coldly, if you know what's good for you. Gui Mu also sneered and was about to say something. Boom! A thunderous explosion rang out. The white cone above Fox 3's head, wrapped in white lightning, shot forth and flew toward Gui Mu. If we're going to fight, then fight. Why waste words? The white cone Fox 3 had summoned streaked across the air like a bolt of white thunder. With a spin, it abruptly transformed into over 100 identical cones. Each white cone was wrapped in white lightning and contained terrifying thunder power. A great whistling filled the air. Dense white cones shot down from all over the sky, covering nearly half of the great hall. With unstoppable momentum, they bore down directly upon Gui Mu and Yin Su. Boy, don't get carried away. Gui Mu sneered. He spread all 5 fingers and suddenly thrust his hand forward. A mass of dazzling black light appeared on his palm. Countless pitch-black plant vines shot out from within at high speed, splitting off into countless side branches and forks. In an instant, they wove themselves into a fine black vine net, blocking all the white thunder cones at once. The white thunder cones were like fish caught in the black vine net. They were trapped inside, darting wildly in all directions and releasing a continuous series of muffled explosions. Fox 3's expression changed slightly, and his hands suddenly formed an incantation gesture. All the thunder cones shone brightly at the same time, spraying dazzling white lightning serpents. As they crossed and flashed, they struck the black vine net one after another. However, the black vine net merely trembled a few times. Those white lightning serpents collapsed inch by inch, while the vine net did not show the slightest sign of tearing. Immediately afterward, black light flashed on the surface of the black vine net, and black tendrils grew out in an instant, binding all the trapped white thunder cones. A mist-like black substance seeped out from the black vine net. It released waves of a rotten stench like decayed mud from a swamp, wrapping around the white thunder cones. The white thunder cones immediately gave off trembling sounds. The white light on their surfaces flickered violently, as if they were being corroded, and their aura weakened rapidly. Fox 3's expression changed. His hands moved like wheels as he formed incantation gestures. White lightning surged from the thunder cones as they struggled desperately. For a time, black light and lightning intertwined and flickered, clashing violently and releasing bursts of thunderous explosions. The nearby void, and even the floor of the entire great hall, rumbled and trembled along with it. The formation patterns on the surrounding walls shook wildly. "Guemu, what are you doing?" A loud shout came from the side. It was Yin Su, his expression extremely cold and stern. Guemu's cheek twitched. He formed a hand seal and waved, and the surging black light on the black vine net immediately stopped growing. Seeing this, Fox 3 seized the opportunity and urged his technique. Silver-white light burst from his body. The white lightning on the thunder cones also flared brightly. A force of lightning law surged out from within, instantly shattering the surrounding black vines and breaking free. Seeing this, Han Li inwardly thought, as expected. Then he raised a hand in a sword incantation gesture. Azure light suddenly arose, then vanished in an instant. The next moment, 9 streaks of azure light appeared out of thin air before Yin Su. They were 9 azure flying swords, and they stabbed down fiercely at the same time. Yin Su's expression shifted slightly. Without any visible movement from him, a layer of dark shadow appeared over his body, then suddenly expanded, forming a spherical black shield around him. The 9 bamboo cloud swarm swords stabbed into the spherical black shield. More than half of each sword sank deeply inside, but then they stopped and could not advance even a fraction farther. Yin Su snorted coldly. Dark light rose from the spherical black shield, and specks of black runes appeared. Where the 9 flying swords had struck, vortex-like ripples emerged. A tremendous suction force came from the spherical black shield, pulling the 9 bamboo cloud swarm swords inward. Han Li's brows furrowed slightly, but he did not panic. He immediately opened his mouth and spat out a mass of azure light. The azure light emitted astonishing immortal spiritual power fluctuations. As soon as it left his mouth, it split into 9 streams, each sinking into one of the 9 bamboo cloud swarm swords. Within each stream of azure light were threads of golden radiance. They were golden crystal filaments, the crystal filaments of the law of time. As the azure light and crystal filaments entered the bamboo cloud swarm swords, the 9 flying swords immediately trembled violently. Thick golden lightning appeared on their blades and sprang out fiercely. Within the lightning, specks of time law runes also appeared. The black shield immediately trembled violently. Black light and golden radiance clashed fiercely, and an explosive aura rapidly surged. Yin Su was slightly startled. The black light around him immediately stopped brightening and instead dimmed. Han Li's eyes flickered, and he immediately pointed with an incantation gesture. The golden lightning bursting from the 9 bamboo cloud swarm swords surged once more. The spherical black shield shook violently, then suddenly shattered, turning into pieces of black afterimages that drifted apart. The 9 bamboo cloud swarm swords shot backward, blurring as they returned to circle around Han Li. Yin Su's face turned ugly. He secretly gritted his teeth and was about to do something. 2 sharp whistles rang out. The void behind him fluctuated, and 2 dark red chains shot out from within, coiling around his body like lightning. Yin Su's figure blurred, then transformed into a slender shadow that merged into the surrounding darkness and disappeared. The next moment, he appeared on the other side of the great hall as if by teleportation. Crying Soul snorted softly and waved both hands after forming an incantation gesture. The 2 dark red chains shot back. "You Luo, you actually colluded with outsiders and betrayed the 9 Nether domain. The domain lord has always cherished and protected you, and this is how you repay him." Yin Su looked at Crying Soul and shouted sternly, "I." Hearing this, Crying Soul's body trembled slightly, and a complicated expression appeared on her face. "Why so much nonsense?" Han Li shouted, once again forming a sword incantation gesture. The 9 bamboo cloud swarm swords shone brilliantly, turning into a mountain-like mass of sword shadows that slashed down upon Yin Su with overwhelming force. Their offensive was extremely sharp, and they erupted with sword chi that soared to the heavens. Yin Su glanced at the formation-covered wall of the great hall behind him, and the corner of his eye twitched. He did not dodge again. Instead, his body spun, and his hands pushed into the air. Streams of black shadow shot from his palms and intertwined with one another, forming something like black waves that collided with the sword shadows. A series of muffled explosions erupted. The mountain-like sword shadows collapsed and disappeared, and the black ripples also vanished without a trace. Yin Su's face turned slightly pale, but he quickly recovered. He did not dare use overly powerful strength. While resisting these incomparably sharp sword shadows, he also had to prevent the collision from becoming too intense, so he suffered a slight hidden loss. Crying Soul, this is not the time to hesitate. They are now wary of damaging what is here, and we must seize this chance. Han Li transmitted to Crying Soul while once again urging his sword art. The sword light emitted by the bamboo cloud swarm swords flashed wildly, transforming into blooming azure lotuses. Each lotus erupted with astonishing sword chi, and shot toward Yin Su like falling rain. Crying Soul also came back to herself. With a wave of both hands, 2 dark red chains shot out from her sleeves and wrapped toward Yin Su like lightning. At the side, Bailey Yen also began to act. He opened his mouth and spat out a mass of black firelight, which transformed into thick black sword lights that chopped down at Gui Mu's head. Black flames rolled over each sword light, erupting with heaven-shaking baleful chi and terrifying power. The 6 of them immediately clashed together, and all kinds of lights flickered inside the great hall. The 2 great encompassment cultivators were exactly as they had been in Yin Zhao's memories. They were extremely afraid of making the battle too intense. They did not dare use their full strength, nor did they dare damage anything in the hall. They were restrained at every turn. Han Li and the others had no such concerns. They fought with all their strength and sometimes deliberately unleashed large-scale attacks, forcing the 2 great encompassment cultivators to block them. This battle left Yin Su and Gui Mu, 2 great encompassment cultivators of the 9 nether domain who were used to commanding wind and rain, feeling incomparably stifled. They could not use even 1/10 of their cultivation. However, the 2 of them were great encompassment beings after all. Their use of laws had reached an extraordinary level, far above Han Li and the others. They soon stabilized the battle situation and slowly gained the upper hand. Although Han Li and the others were burning with anxiety, the disparity in cultivation was simply too great. There was still nothing they could do, and they gradually shifted from active offense to passive defense. At this time, more than half of the light sources in the hall had been extinguished by the shockwaves from the constant fighting, leaving the interior dim. On one side of the great hall 3 figures, 1 golden, 1 red and 1 black, were exchanging blows like lightning. They were Han Li, Crying Soul and Yin Su. The golden and black figures crossed past one another like lightning, producing a low muffled sound. Han Li staggered backward. A long wound had been torn open on his shoulder, and blood spilled from it. Yin Su's figure also swayed, but he immediately steadied himself and raised a hand, chopping toward Han Li through the air. The black light around him fluctuated, and 2 thick black spear shadows shot out from it, stabbing separately toward Han Li and Crying Soul. With a single flash, they appeared before the 2 of them at an inconceivable speed. The aura emitted by the spear shadows was not powerful, but a layer of ripple-like black light appeared on them, releasing strange vibrations. Han Li's figure was still somewhat unsteady. His face darkened, and he immediately pointed with an incantation gesture. The 9 bamboo cloud swarm swords circling above his head shone brilliantly and transformed into 9 giant azure swords. They spun rapidly around his body, continuously slashing at the black spear shadow. A series of muffled sounds rang out. As soon as the 9 bamboo cloud swarm swords struck the spear shadow, they all slid down along the shaft. The black spear shadow instantly pierced through the obstruction of the 9 flying swords and stabbed toward Han Li's face. Han Li's expression changed. His body hurriedly retreated backward, while golden light erupted from him. A layer of fine purple-gold scales also appeared over both fists, and he punched out fiercely, striking the tip of the black spear shadow. But the expected earth-shaking explosion did not occur. Han Li's iron fist slammed into the black spear tip, and the black spear shadow suddenly trembled, then actually burst apart. Han Li froze for an instant, but in the next moment his expression changed drastically. A strange fluctuation transmitted out from the shattered black spear shadow and entered his body. Han Li's body began to tremble bizarrely. His whole body immediately went numb, and at the same time, the circulation of immortal spiritual power inside him became sluggish. His entire body stiffened at once. Crying Soul was the same on the other side, frozen in place. Shadow Cage! Yin Su shouted in a low voice, pointing with an incantation gesture. The shadowed areas around Han Li and Crying Soul suddenly shook. Tentacle-like black shadows shot out from them and wrapped around their bodies. At the same time, those black shadows rapidly intertwined with one another, forming two huge black bird cages in the blink of an eye, trapping their bodies within. Han Li's stiffness lasted only a very short time, and he quickly recovered. However, he was already inside the black bird cage and simply could not break free. These tentacle-like black shadows were extremely tough. They wrapped around his body layer upon layer, and a tremendous oppressive force continuously transmitted from every part of the bird cage. It was as if the entire void itself were pressing down on him. Crying Soul was also unable to move on the other side. At that moment, furious roars came from nearby. Fox 3 and Bailey Yen were also in a rather bad state. Their bodies were entangled by thick black vines. The vines rapidly wound around them, forming vine cocoons around their bodies and firmly imprisoning them inside. From Fox 3's initial attack to the four of them being trapped once again, the sequence seemed complicated, but less than half an incense stick of time had passed. The situation had once more become extremely perilous. Guemu swept his gaze over Fox 3 and Bailey Yen, who were tied up like two dumplings, and chuckled. Then black light flashed in his hand, and two objects like black withered branches appeared. Rows of gray characters flickered on the branches, constantly rolling and shifting, looking rather profound. A dazzling gray ripple bloomed from the branches, while a terrifying baleful aura that could seize one's soul soared from them. The next moment, a fierce light flashed in Guemu's eyes, and he waved his hand. With a whoosh, the two black withered branches immediately turned into two black crystal streaks and shot from his hand, stabbing separately toward Fox 3 and Bailey Yen. On the other side, Insu raised both hands, sending out over a dozen black threads. These black threads were actually foot-long black needles as fine as hairs. Specks of black runes flickered on their shafts, making the needles look somewhat indistinct as they shot with extreme speed toward various parts of Han Li's body. Seeing this, Han Li's eyelids twitched, but he did not panic. Golden light erupted from his entire body, and the true mantra treasured wheel appeared behind him, spinning rapidly. Although the black bird cage had imprisoned his body, it had failed to seal the immortal spiritual power within him. Dense golden ripples spread from the true mantra treasured wheel in circles, instantly covering a radius of several dozen zhang. Within the great hall, everything enveloped by the golden light, whether the dozen black needles, the two black withered vines, the black bird cage, or the vine cocoons, instantly froze. Insu, Guemu, and Shi Chuankong, who was breaking the restriction, were also covered by the golden ripples and were immediately immobilized, unable to move. At this moment, only Han Li could still act. But he knew very well that although this degree of time law power could catch great encompassment cultivators off guard and immobilize them, it would definitely not last long. If the space here had not been so narrow, it would have been impossible to succeed. This could only be considered a risky move. As he thought this, he rapidly chanted an incantation. Golden light surged over his body, and he bent a finger before pointing. The golden light on his body poured out from his fingertip. All the remaining time crystal filaments in his body also emerged and merged into the golden light. A golden finger shadow appeared and struck toward the surrounding black bird cage. Although the finger shadow was not large, it emitted an extremely sharp aura, as if it could pierce a great hole through the sky. It was none other than the heaven-shocking finger divine ability. With a soft puff like a finger piercing through a sheet of white paper, the black bird cage was instantly punctured, leaving a large hole. At the same time, Han Li grabbed at the air with his other hand. Green light flashed before him, and the Xiantian gourd appeared. The gourd spun, and a golden thread of light instantly shot from it, sweeping swiftly around Fox 3 and Bailey Yen. The golden thread was blindingly bright and emitted an incomparably sharp fluctuation of law. This was the law power he had obtained by grinding down an extremely high-quality metal attribute immortal treasure. With a puff, the vines around the two of them were cut apart as easily as tofu. Han Li's body blurred, and he flew out from the shattered black bird cage. At the same time, he pulled the nearby Crying Soul along with him. He then waved his hand, releasing a stream of azure light that wrapped around Fox 3 and Bailey Yen, pulling their bodies backward. At this moment, Guemu and Insu had already opened their eyes within the immobilization. Black light erupted from both of them at the same time, crashing against the surrounding golden ripples. Amid a series of tearing sounds, the golden ripples shattered and scattered like ice and snow meeting fire. The flow of time around the two of them immediately returned to normal. However, by this time, Han Li and the others had already shot backward and landed beside Shi Chuankong. Han Li waved his hand after forming an incantation gesture. The golden ripples around them flashed and disappeared, and everything in the hall returned to normal. Many thanks. Fox 3's expression eased as he thanked Han Li. Shock appeared in Bailey Yan's eyes. He looked deeply at Han Li and also offered his thanks. Shi Chuankong had also recovered, but he seemed not to have noticed the abnormal change just now and was still buried in studying the restrictions on the stone gate. At this moment, several hundred silver formation flags floated around him, flying up and down to form several silver formations. These formations released bursts of skyward silver light that shone upon the stone gate. Countless silver runes flew out from them and entered the silver light screen on the gate. The silver light screen flickered continuously and emitted buzzing vibrations. The opponents are great encompassment beings. We have only survived until now because this space is narrow and because they have misgivings. From here on, it will not be so simple, Han Li said in a low voice, his gaze never leaving Yin Su and the other man. Fox 3 and the others immediately nodded, their expressions becoming much more solemn. I didn't expect there would be someone capable of using the law of time to such a degree, Yin Su transmitted without making an immediate move. Even you and I need a little time to break free from it. Although that time is very short, it is enough for them to regroup. If this continues, there will be no end to it. And if we keep delaying, it will be disastrous if they break the restrictions on the stone gate, Guemu replied, glancing toward Shi Chuankong. The restrictions on the stone gate were personally set by the domain lord. How could these few stray mongrels who stumbled in by mistake possibly break them just because they wish to? The baleful chi here is 100 times denser than outside. I can sense that their bodies have already been deeply corroded by it. Before long, even if we do nothing, they will be unable to hold on, Yin Su said through transmission with a sinister smile. Guemu was startled when he heard this. He glanced at Han Li and the others, and a trace of joy also flashed in his eyes. At the same time, Han Li frowned slightly. A faint pain once again began to throb in his mind, and the baleful chi inside his body began to stir restlessly again. Master! Seeing Han Li's expression, Crying Soul was about to say something, but Yin Su and Guemu once again pounced forward. The four of them changed expressions and were about to resist. But at that moment, a sudden change occurred. An incomparably dazzling silver light abruptly burst from the stone gate, illuminating the entire great hall into a world of snow-white brightness. Shi Chuankong was now rapidly forming incantation gestures with both hands. The formation flags within the silver formations around him shot downward and embedded themselves into the silver light screen on the stone gate without the slightest disorder, as if they had originally grown there. The silver light screen on the stone gate shone brightly and flashed rapidly. The formation patterns on the other walls of the great hall also all lit up, releasing various colors of light. From deep within the stone gate, a roar faintly seemed to come, causing the entire great hall to tremble slightly. What are you doing? Stop at once. Yin Su and Guemu's expressions changed drastically when they saw this, and they roared aloud. The two of them immediately abandoned Han Li's group and charged toward Shi Chuankong together. Stop them. Don't let them interfere with fellow Taoist Shi. Han Li's eyes flashed. His body flickered, blocking the two of them, and he waved a hand after forming an incantation gesture. The 9 bamboo cloud swarm swords beside him shot out. Golden lightning blazed over their surfaces as they transformed into 9 huge golden swords, and slashed fiercely down at Guemu. The Xintiang gourd spun again and sprayed a streak of crimson light toward Yin Su. Fox 3 and the others also immediately attacked. Various immortal treasures rained down, almost converging into a torrent of immortal treasures that blocked Yin Su and Guemu. Even though the two were great encompassment beings, they did not dare take Han Li and the others' attacks lightly. They had no choice but to stop and cast techniques to resist, and the group once again became locked in battle. Shi Chuankong's expression was solemn. At this moment, silver light blazed around his body, and strands of silver crystal filaments shot out, quickly entering the light screen on the stone gate. At the same time, silver light flashed in his hand, and a silver pipa appeared. It was precisely the one from the forbidden area of the true mantra sect. Shi Chuankong's hands moved like lightning, playing rapidly. The resonant sounds of the pipa echoed through the great hall. Silver lights shaped like musical notes flew from the pipa and entered the silver light screen on the stone gate. The silver light screen on the stone gate shone even brighter and emitted a piercing buzzing sound, growing louder and louder, like 10,000 surging waves. Open! Shi Chuankong's eyes suddenly widened. His hands transformed into countless afterimages as they rapidly plucked the pipa. A dazzling silver light flashed from the pipa and flew out. Within it, a silver human figure faintly appeared, then entered the light screen on the stone gate. A thunderous boom rang out. The silver light screen on the stone gate flashed violently, then immediately collapsed. The other restrictions on the gate dimmed sharply as well, as if they had suffered heavy damage along with it. Haha! The Luoja pipa has finally been refined by me. Shi Chuankong's face was flushed, and a line of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, but his spirits were extremely high as he laughed loudly. He then turned his head and glanced at the battle behind him, plucking the pipa with one hand. Two ribbon-like streams of silver light immediately shot from the pipa at extreme speed. With a flash they wrapped around Guemu and Yin Su. Silver light flared over the two of them, and then they vanished into thin air at the same time. At that very moment, near the entrance of the underground passage, silver light flashed, and the figures of Guemu and Yin Su appeared. This! The two looked around, their expressions changing as they cried out in shock. Their faces turned extremely ugly. They exchanged a glance, then immediately transformed into two streaks of black light, and flew back into the underground passage. Near the stone gate, Han Li and the others were also slightly stunned when they saw this. I have already broken the spatial restriction on the stone gate. However, this restriction is extremely profound. I only managed to break it temporarily by relying on the power of the Luoja pipa. The restriction will soon form again. We must enter immediately, Shi Chuankong said, plucking the pipa again with both hands. Streams of silver light shot out from it and landed nearby, instantly forming the previous teleportation formation. Hearing this, Han Li and the others immediately put away their immortal treasures and flew into the formation. Shi Chuankong muttered incantations under his breath. The silver formation shone brilliantly, and the figures of the group vanished in a flash. Almost as soon as Han Li and the others disappeared, two streaks of black light flew in and transformed into Yin Su and Guemu. When the two saw the empty great hall, their already ashen faces became even uglier. The silver light screen on the stone gate had already condensed again, but it had not yet stabilized and was still fluctuating violently. The seal is inside. Hurry and use the 9 nether token to open the restriction here. We must chase after them. Guemu immediately looked at Yin Su and said urgently. Yin Su formed an incantation gesture and waved a hand. The black ghost beast token appeared, but he did not activate it immediately. Why aren't you acting yet? Guemu asked, his expression darkening. You think I don't want to? The restriction on the gate has not calmed down yet. Even the 9 nether token cannot open it. Yin Su said with a gloomy face. Guemu froze when he heard this. Both his hands clenched tightly into fists, and his eyes stared fixedly at the stone gate. As soon as they passed through the stone gate, Han Li and the others traversed a dim passage and arrived in an extremely spacious hall. The hall was gloomy. Rows of dark yellow oil lamps hung on both walls, burning with a milky white grease. No smoke rose from them, but a faintly sweet, cloying scent spread through the air. Han Li let out a long breath and looked over at the others. Seeing that each of them also looked relieved, he could not help sighing inwardly. Escaping from the joint assault of 2 great encompassment cultivators had truly been no easy feat. Had the restriction opened even a breath or two later, they might all have been wiped out. Although they were safe for the moment, the taut string in his heart did not loosen in the slightest. They had no idea what sort of place this was. If circumstances had not forced him into it, he would never have risked entering such a place. In his view, any place a great clan called a forbidden ground usually carried some special significance. Either it concealed some cultivation method, secret manual or treasure, or else it sealed away some kind of being. Judging from how tense Ghostwood and Inshu had been about this place earlier, as though terrified that the restrictions here might be damaged, Hanli guessed that the latter possibility was more likely. The group did not dare linger where they were and immediately split up to investigate the hall. The floor of the entire hall was covered in layer upon layer of runes, crisscrossing in a highly intricate pattern. On the walls to either side were carved two extremely long stone relief murals. The scenes depicted on them were quite similar to what they had seen on the palace gates earlier, mostly bloody images of strange beasts slaughtering one another. Something seems wrong. There's no path ahead. We've been completely trapped here, Husan said after quickly walking to the far end of the hall and examining it for a moment before turning back. Hanli shifted his gaze over and saw that at the end of the hall there was indeed no passage leading deeper inside. Instead, the entire wall was carved with the relief of a humanoid colossal beast, the very same one that had been on the right side of the palace. However, the beast was no longer in its previous crouching posture. It now stood upright. Its legs were not human in shape, but resembled those of a stag or deer, with clearly bent knee joints. Huge black scales were carved all over them, and thick coils of black baleful chi wound around their surface. One of its clawed hands was raised high, a mass of pitch-black mist condensing in its palm. In its other hand it held an enormous flame-shaped sword of a very strange design. Its head was lifted as if roaring toward the heavens, and a fierce primordial aura seemed to rush straight toward them. We were able to break through the spatial restriction outside, so it definitely won't hold them off for long, Shi Chuankong said with a worried expression, his gaze constantly sweeping around the surroundings. Don't panic. First we need to figure out what this place is, Hanli said, his eyes narrowing slightly. This place looks like some sort of sacrificial site. Look at the mural over here, Crying Souls suddenly said. Everyone hurriedly looked over and saw that the innermost section of the right wall was indeed carved with a scene resembling ancient human ancestors from the mortal world offering sacrifices to primeval gods. However, the scene carved here was far grander and bloodier. The sacrificial offerings consisted of tens of thousands of Grey Realm creatures. Among them were various great Grey Realm demons with low spiritual awareness, as well as civilized races such as the Tsetong clan. All of them had been driven into a massive pit shaped like an ocean bowl. Outside the pit lay the colossal beast carved on the wall. Half of its body leaned over the rim of the ocean bowl. Its blood-red maw split open, its face full of greed and savage malice. Comparing it with the Tsetong clansmen inside the bowl, one could tell that this beast was enormous, at least 1,000 zhang in size. Hanli glanced at the giant ocean bowl-shaped pit, then frowned and stepped back a few paces, looking toward a strange depression in the floor. The chaotic runic lines on the ground seemed disorderly at first glance, but in truth, they all tangled and converged toward this depression, which was only several zhang wide and sunken beneath the floor. What is it? Did you find something? Bailey Yen, who had expended quite a bit earlier and had only just finished adjusting his breath, stepped forward and asked. Look at this depression. Doesn't it resemble an open ocean bowl, somewhat similar to the sacrificial pit in the mural? Hanli said after pondering for a moment. Now that you mention it, it really does look somewhat similar, just countless times smaller. Seems this really is a sacrificial site. Then that thing on the wall couldn't be, Shi Chuankong said after carefully examining it for a while. I'm afraid that thing is sealed here. That is why the Nine Nether clan calls this place a forbidden ground, Hanli said with a nod. No wonder the Nine Nether clan forbids fighting here. They're afraid the seal here might be damaged and that thing released, Husan said in sudden realization. With a rumble, the hall floor suddenly shook violently, and a booming sound came from outside. They've already begun breaking the restriction, Crying Soul said. At this point we have no way back. Since the Nine Nether clan fears this colossal beast, we'll find a way to release it. Perhaps we can still seize a slim chance of survival, Hanli said after pondering for a moment, his gaze sharpening. Crying Soul's expression changed slightly when she heard this. A clear trace of hesitation flashed through her eyes, but in the end she said nothing. Boily, I advise you not to do that. I've already remembered what this thing is. Once it's released, never mind dealing with the pursuers behind you. The first ones to suffer will likely be all of you. Hanli was just about to speak when Shi Qingho's voice sounded again in his sea of consciousness. You know what it is? Hanli asked doubtfully. Kunhu. Have you ever heard of it? Shi Qingho transmitted. What is that? Hanli was slightly startled, somewhat at a loss. The Kunhu is a being that has existed in the Grey Realm since the primeval age, before chaos had even opened. It is said to be a monster condensed from the source of the Grey Realm's baleful energy. Its strength is heaven-defying and absolutely not something manpower can resist. Many races in the Grey Realm still retain ancient customs of sacrificing to it. As for why it was sealed here by the Nine Nether clan, I do not know. I say this only as a well-intentioned warning. In the end, the decision is still yours, Shi Qingho said. After that, his voice fell silent again. Master. Seeing Hanli looking somewhat absent-minded, Crying Soul hurriedly called out to him. The others' gazes also turned toward him in unison. Clearly, everyone had gradually grown used to following his lead and letting him make the decisions. At a life-and-death juncture, we can't worry about so much. No matter what's below, we release it first, Hanli said after a brief silence, as if having made up his mind. Outside the hall, the rumbling grew more and more frequent. Ghostwood and Inshu also seemed to have grown anxious, their attacks becoming increasingly heavy. This restriction is extremely complex. If we try to destroy it by force with our current combat strength, I'm afraid we won't have enough time. We should first see whether we can undo it through array formation, Shi Chuankong said with a frown. There's no time to lose. Split up and act, Hanli said with a nod, agreeing with his view. Thus, everyone began searching for the array nodes and array core. Purple light flashed in Hanli's eyes as he activated the 9 nether demonic eyes and began investigating the altar before him. Under the demonic eyes, every detail around the sacrificial pit became clearly visible. Before long, he saw that the seemingly smooth altar was actually covered in many earthworm-like patterns. They densely covered the entire surface. The lines were chaotic and without order, and did not seem to be any unknown runes. Their grooves were filled with filth, all of it resembling black sludge. Inside the sacrificial pit, there were likewise dense patterns, forming a strange design similar to a flame. Hanli examined it for a long time and, after finding nothing unusual, shifted his gaze toward the surrounding murals. The material of the stone murals did not differ from that of the wall itself. After staring at them for quite some time, he still found nothing. Have any of you discovered anything? Hussein asked as he returned from one corner of the hall. There are some patterns on the ground, but they look broken and disconnected, without any structure. They should only be decorative, not some array restriction, Shi Chuankong said, shaking his head. Hanli raised his head and glanced at the dome above. There he saw circular runes carved in rings, each larger than the last. There were 7 layers in total, and each layer was engraved with a dense string of runes. At the very center hung a section of black cylindrical stone, suspended upside down. Look above, Hanli said as something stirred in his heart. Hearing this, everyone looked upward. This seems to be a spatial restrictive array. Shi Chuankong's eyes lit up as he spoke. Brother Shi, do you recognize it? Hussein asked. Shi Chuankong did not answer. His brows knotted together as if he had fallen into deep thought. Only after a moment did he slowly say, this restriction is divided into 2 parts, heaven and earth, above and below. Judging from the overall layout, it bears some resemblance to our Devil Realm's Heaven-Earth Nether Ceiling Grand Array. As for the array patterns above, they overlap in many places with the spatial runes recorded in the Grey Realm array classics I once examined. It should be a similar array from the Grey Realm. Is there anything we can borrow from that? Hanli asked. I'm not entirely sure. Although there are similarities, the differences are also quite obvious. This restrictive grand array contains quite a few fire attribute patterns, and I still don't understand what they are used for, Shi Chuankong said hesitantly. As he spoke, another huge boom came from outside, and the ground beneath everyone's feet trembled with it. There's no time to guess. Just go ahead and try. If it fails, then we wait for Inshu and the others to break in, fight them to the death, and try to use their power to destroy the seal here, Hanli said with unusual calm. Good. Then I must ask everyone to follow my instructions for now and help me set things up, Shi Chuankong said solemnly with a nod. Everyone hurriedly responded. They began receiving pieces of baleful absorbing inkstone and array discs from Shi Chuankong, following his commands and setting them up across the hall floor. After the ground had been covered with black stones, he directed everyone to begin embedding them into the dome above as well. In the entire hall, aside from Shi Chuankong's simple instructions and the sound of everyone's hurried footsteps, there was only the intermittent rumbling coming from outside. The atmosphere was oppressive to the extreme. A dozen breaths later, accompanied by a boom that made Han Li and the others' hearts shake violently, Inshu and Ghost Wood finally broke through the array outside. Still a bit more. Hurry! Sweat streamed down Shi Chuankong's forehead as he gritted his teeth. There's no time. You keep setting it up. I'll find a way to buy some time, Bailey Yen said in a deep voice as he stood. Master, I can't help much here either. I'll go with fellow Taoist Bailey to block them for a while. Crying Soul also said. It's too dangerous for the two of you to go like this. The other side has two genuine great encompassment cultivators. If this were outside, a single thought from them might be enough to destroy both body and soul, Han Li said with a frown, though his hands did not stop moving. If we don't block them even briefly, they'll rush in before we can release that thing, and then we'll truly be sitting here waiting for death. Back when the Torch Dragon Dao was destroyed by Xiaojin Han, my baleful chi backlash nearly ruined everything. Thanks to fellow Taoist Li's Grand Unity Pill, I survived. This time, after being captured into the Nether region, I was saved again by fellow Taoist Crying Soul. I Bailey Yan can already be considered to have died twice. This time we'll see just how hard my life really is. Bailey Yan laughed aloud as he spoke. Master, rest assured. After all, I am the trusted subordinate of the 9 Nether Domain Lord. I doubt they will truly dare kill me. With me going together with fellow Taoist Bailey, we should be able to buy some time, Crying Soul said as well. Be very careful. Avoid direct confrontation, Han Li said, a complex look appearing in his eyes. Bailey Yen and Crying Soul exchanged a glance, then both flashed away, one after the other, flying out through the hall entrance. On the small plaza outside the hall, Ghost Wood and Inshu were just charging over when they ran head-on into an enormous black fireball. There was a tremendous boom. The huge fireball exploded, scattering a great shower of meteor-like flames. Beneath the curtain of fire, a massive dark green shield split apart into countless ghostly vines, rapidly withdrawing into Ghost Wood's sleeve. You reckless lunatics! Do you know what place this is? How dare you run wild here? Ghost Wood looked toward Crying Soul and Bailey Yen as they rushed into the plaza and rebuked them coldly. Stop wasting words on them. End this quickly, Inshu said after swiftly sweeping his gaze around. Without saying another word, Bailey Yen raised his hand, formed an incantation gesture with his fingers, and chanted a few lines. Then he suddenly lifted his hand and tapped a point at his own dantian. Ugh! Along with a heart-rending roar, a bright crimson light like magma lit up at his dantian. From it, bright red cracks split outward, quickly spreading across his entire body. Immediately afterward, strands of black flame poured layer by layer from the cracks in his body, mingled with thick billowing black smoke. It blotted out the sky and covered the earth, soon shrouding the entire small plaza. Seeing this, Crying Soul darted sideways. She suddenly raised both arms, clenched both fists and stepped forward, releasing a roar utterly at odds with her appearance. Roar! With that furious roar, black light rapidly circulated over her body. Her eyes turned blood red, and her figure expanded at incredible speed. In moments, she had transformed into a black giant ape over 100 zhang tall. The black fur all over her body stood upright like steel needles. Strange horns grew from her head, her fangs were bared, and the flesh at her brow split open, revealing a third blood-red demonic eye. 3 black bone spikes jutted out from her back, and a chilling aura surged around her. Yuluo, you traitor! His lordship favored you so highly. Yet for outsiders, you have even revealed your true punishment beast form. This is unforgivable. Ghostwood roared angrily, his face dark. As soon as his voice fell, violent rumbling came from overhead. Deep within the thick black smoke, it was as if countless bolts of lightning were colliding with one another, bursting with flashes of electric light. Amid the smoke and lightning, the enormous figure of a black torch dragon appeared faintly. Karmic fire coiled around its body as it slowly twisted in midair, firmly blocking the hall behind it. Because its body was far too enormous, the dragon's back rubbed violently against the void restriction above, sending sparks flying and rumbling non-stop. They are counting on us not daring to damage the restriction, knowing we can't fight freely, which is why they dare act so recklessly. Elder ghosts would go undo all the restrictions inside the forbidden ground, Inshu said with a cold laugh. What? How can that be done? Ghostwood was startled and hurriedly said. They have already broken in. What use is there in keeping these outer restrictions active? They will only bind our hands and feet. If we strike too heavily and accidentally cause the restrictions to collapse, it could trigger a chain reaction and directly damage the seal inside. Better that we undo them ourselves and finish this quickly, Inshu said with a gloomy expression. But Ghostwood still hesitated. You know all the internal control points of the array. Take the 9 nether token and go at once. This is no longer about whether the two of us will be punished. If we delay the domain lord's arrangements, even 10,000 deaths would not be enough to atone, Inshu barked. Hearing this, Ghostwood stomped his foot hard, turned, and shot toward one corner of the plaza without looking back. Since 10,000 deaths would not be enough for us, then let me grind you to dust. Dark prison, Inshu shouted. His aura instantly surged by far more than several times. A patch of black light lit up beneath his feet. A vast expanse of ink-like black shadow rapidly flowed outward, spreading over the sky and earth. The shadow on the ground rose upward, while the shadow in the sky pressed downward. Like a giant pot closing from above and below, it enveloped the entire plaza and the void above it. Bailey Yin and Crying Soul, who had revealed their true forms, seemed to have been dragged into another void in an instant. Their eyes could no longer see. Their ears could no longer hear. Their 5 senses were completely cut off, and even the aura of heaven and earth could no longer be sensed. A moment later, all the layers of light curtains covering the palace structure vanished. Within a dense black shadow that was so thick it could not be dispersed, rumbling continued without end as the darkness rapidly expanded. At the same time, inside the hall with a faint click, the sound of mechanisms turning began to ring out from all directions. Han Li and the other two stood around the sacrificial pit, all looking toward the dome above, not even daring to breathe loudly. The layered circular runes on the dome began to glow with black light, rotating ring by ring. The stone pillar at the very center started descending inch by inch. There was a clang. The descending stone pillar aligned perfectly with the altar below, its protruding end fitting into the concave sacrificial pit. Click, click, click. As the sounds of mechanisms turning rang out, an extremely dense surge of pitch-black baleful chi rose from underground, flooding the floor of the entire hall. Seeing this, Han Li and the others instinctively retreated. Immediately afterward, the entire stone chamber began to tremble violently. The baleful absorbing inkstones embedded in the ground and dome lit up one after another, shining like stars in the already dim hall. The runes on the floor also began to glow. At that moment, sounds like the heavy breathing of a wild beast drifted out from some unknown corner of the hall. Something seems wrong, Han Li said thoughtfully, having caught a trace of a strange aura. Shi Chuankong and Husan immediately grew tense as well. Han Li's gaze flashed. He suddenly saw that on the wall behind Husan, the relief carved with the image of Kunhu abruptly lit up, as though a sheet of crimson flame had swept across it. A hazy mist rose over the surface, making it difficult to see clearly. In a daze, he felt as though the ferocious strange beasts carved on the wall were about to come alive. They began trembling one after another, and the scenes of them devouring each other became increasingly vivid. Even the mountains of piled skulls shook violently, as if they would roll down into the hall in the next moment. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly saw the eyes of the Kunhu relief on the wall light up. Husan dodge! Han Li shouted. Husan did not hesitate in the slightest. He immediately tilted his head and flashed sideways. With a whistling sound, something shot past close to his ear. A fist-sized crimson fireball and a pitch-black fireball, intertwined with one another, shot out from the statue's eye sockets and struck the stone pillar hanging down from the roof. There was a bang. The two masses of firelight scattered sparks at the same time. Then, one to the left and one to the right, They spiraled upward along the black stone pillar like two fire serpents. One climbed toward the hall ceiling, while the other slithered down toward the altar on the ground. Wherever they passed, every rune was lit up. Han Li and the others watched with fluctuating expressions of shock and uncertainty. Above them, black light blazed brightly, echoing the crimson glow on the ground below, as though a prairie fire had been ignited beneath a pitch-black night sky. Rumbling sounds came from underground. The crimson light on the ground grew stronger and stronger, and waves of scorching air truly began to rise from below. There was a crack. The altar connected to the stone pillar shook violently. Cracks immediately appeared on the surrounding ground. The floor became unstable and actually began to collapse. "Careful!" Han Li shouted in a low voice, immediately lifting his body into the air. Shi Chuankong and Husan also hurriedly lit up with escaping light and flew into midair. The three of them frowned tightly and looked down. The entire hall floor had begun splitting into countless fragments, breaking apart like floating ice on a river and falling downward. Beneath the floor, an enormous underground abyss had appeared, extending downward for who knew how many thousands of li light flickered inside it. Half of it was filled with crimson flames, the other half with black flames, the two merging and burning fiercely together. Below the stone pillar connected to the altar, there was actually a thick stone column extending all the way into the depths of the earth. Dense, ancient runes were carved all over it, and it had been burned completely red by the blazing flames underground. Purple light flashed in Han Li's eyes as he activated the 9 nether demonic eyes and stared downward. Within the red and black flames he could sense strands of fire law aura, as well as waves of powerful karmic fire baleful chi. Deep inside, there seemed to be scarlet chains crisscrossing and wrapping around the stone pillar. Beneath those layers of interwoven chains, there also seemed to be a blurry shadow flickering continuously. Han Li was staring intently when his pupils suddenly contracted. His body instinctively shot upward, slamming into the dome of the hall. Inside the underground pit, the blazing flames suddenly erupted like a volcano with a thunderous roar. Roar! Accompanied by a roar that shook the mind and spirit, an incomparably enormous, ferocious hand suddenly reached out from the flames and grabbed fiercely through the void. It swept exactly through the place where Han Li had just been hovering. After missing, it clanged as it clasped onto the edge of the pit. The hand was several hundred zhang long, as though cast from refined rock and iron. It was covered everywhere in sharp-edged black stone-like blocks, and its surface was shrouded in sharp protrusions like thorns. Around it coiled an extremely dense layer of black flame. The colossal being from the depths of the earth before them left Han Li, and the other two deeply shaken. A single hand was already like a mountain. The size of its true body was even more unimaginable. That black flame was clearly karmic fire as well, but the baleful chi and scorching power contained within it were more than 100 times stronger than what they had encountered in the karmic fire lake before. Yet what shocked them most was not this, but the ancient, savage, primordial aura spreading from the underground pit. Within it was a fury that looked down indifferently on all living beings, and made one tremble from the depths of the heart. The thing we released seems rather terrifying. Shura City probably won't be peaceful after this, Shi Chuankong said, sucking in a cold breath. Fellow Taoist Li, this thing, should we really have released it? Husan looked toward Han Li and muttered hesitantly. If we didn't release it, we would have had only death in the end. By releasing it, there may still be a slim opportunity, Han Li said calmly, shaking his head. As soon as he finished speaking, a dense series of metallic scraping sounds came from underground. A dozen or so extremely thick scarlet chains suddenly shot out from below. The surface of each chain was wrapped in countless fine runes. These chains seemed to have eyes of their own. They coiled around the enormous hand one after another. The runes on them flashed rapidly, spiritual light blazing, and then they suddenly tightened. Clang, clang, clang. The various runes carved onto the stone pillar in the pit flashed rapidly, and the sound of tightening chains followed. Immediately afterward, an earth-shaking roar came from underground. Han Li and the other two felt their bodies jolt, their organs shaken violently. All of them retreated some distance. Under the tremendous pulling force of the chains, the huge hand left 3 horrifying gouges in the ground before slowly sliding back into the underground pit. It seems the seal hasn't been fully broken. What's going on? Han Li asked with a frown when he saw this. Hearing this, Shi Chuankong hurriedly flew toward the only remaining altar on the ground and carefully examined it. After inspecting it for a while, his gaze fell on a flame-shaped pattern exposed at the collapsed edge of the altar. Although the array here appears similar on the surface to our Devil Race's Heaven-Earth Nether-Sealing Grand Array, internally it is quite different. We may have only loosened the seal. Judging from the position of this rune, if we want to fully undo it, we may need to inject some fire attribute law power here to assist in breaking the seal, Shi Chuankong said, somewhat uncertain. Fire attribute law power? Fellow Taoist Bailey is still outside buying us time. Where are we supposed to find fire attribute law power? Husan said with a bitter laugh. Shi Chuankong was immediately stifled. Among the three of them, none had cultivated fire attribute law power. Perhaps he can help. Han Li frowned, somewhat hesitant. A tremendous boom came from outside. Immediately afterward, there came a roar like that of a giant dragon. Han Li's expression changed at once. He knew this was the agonized cry of the torch dragon transformed from Bailey Yan. This time he no longer hesitated in the slightest. With a wave of his hand, a silver light gate appeared. Inside the gate, Qi Rong was sitting against the foot of a wall. Before him, immortal heat fire had also awakened, but his eyes still showed no light at all. He clearly had yet to regain his senses. The 2 Nine Nether clan children were also still unconscious in the corner. We can only try. Fellow Taoist Qi, now that you and we are both trapped in the Grey Realm, we can be considered to be in the same boat. Before Han Li could finish speaking, Qi Rong interrupted him. Say it. What do you need me to do? He propped himself up and stood. I need to borrow fellow Taoist's fire attribute law power, Han Li said immediately. The cultivation method I practice is primarily based on the laws of time. The fire attribute is only a secondary attribute. Moreover, the restriction in my body has not been removed, and those nether slaves previously extracted too much fire attribute law power from me to refine some kind of treasure. There is not much power left in my body. If you need me for some major task, you may be disappointed, Qi Rong said slowly. Han Li looked toward Shi Chuankong after hearing this, and the latter said, That is fine. It is only being used to guide the restrictive array. Hearing this, Qi Rong said no more. He stepped out through the silver light gate and flew toward the altar on the ground. As he neared the altar, his body suddenly swayed, as though he could no longer support himself and was about to slip downward. Shi Chuankong, who was nearby, hurriedly gave him a hand. Inject the fire attribute law power into this pattern, Shi Chuankong said, pointing to the edge of the altar. Qi Rong examined the altar, then looked down into the pit below. His brow twitched slightly. Time is pressing. Fellow Taoist Qi, please hurry, Han Li said, his gaze narrowing as he could not help urging him. Qi Rong said nothing more. He lifted a palm and placed it over the flame pattern at the edge of the altar. The law power within his body began to circulate, and crimson firelight flared in his palm. While Han Li and the others' attention was all drawn to the altar, 2 figures within the still open silver light gate supported each other and flew out. Their bodies twisted in midair, and they shot toward the outside of the hall. From the corner of his eye, Han Li noticed that they were the 2 Nine Nether clan children they had captured earlier. Fellow Taoist Li, should I go capture them? Husan asked when he saw this. Let them go. Given the current situation, whether those 2 children are here or not makes no difference anymore, Han Li said, shaking his head. But at that very moment, a sudden change occurred. As Qi Rong's fire attribute law power lit up the flame pattern on the altar, accompanied by a low roar, a vortex current like a black whirlwind suddenly swept out from the underground pit and instantly caught up with the 2 children who were about to flee. Han Li and the others all looked over and witnessed an extremely bloody sight. The clothes on the 2 children instantly decayed. Their exposed bodies rapidly shriveled and collapsed. Blood seeped from their skin, their flesh rotted, and their bones fractured and shattered. In moments they had turned into 2 masses of sticky blood paste, which were then swept back by the black vortex. Vaguely, Han Li sensed an extremely special aura within that blood paste. It was somewhat similar to the true spirit bloodline in his own body, yet not entirely the same. Its blood qi was vigorous, yet also exceedingly keen and baleful. Before he could figure out what was going on, the entire hall began to shake violently again. Immediately afterward, large waves of crimson and black flame surged once more, spilling toward the mouth of the pit like erupting magma. Get away! Hanli hurriedly waved his hand and closed the flower branch domain, his figure flashing aside. Shichuankong and the others had also sensed that something was wrong and had already dodged away in advance. Clang clang clang. A rapid grinding of chains continuously rang out from within the surging flames. The sky-covering giant hand that had appeared earlier actually emerged again. However, just as it rushed out of the pit entrance, it was seized again by scarlet chains. This time, however, the strength of that flaming giant hand had clearly grown several times stronger. Bang bang bang. A string of explosive sounds rang out one after another. The chains wrapped around the flaming giant hand trembled wildly with spiritual light and snapped apart. The giant hand shot into the sky, its fingertips driving straight toward the roof above the hall. Like piercing a sheet of thin paper, it punched directly through it. Immediately afterward, as though it had found a point of leverage, it hooked onto the entire hall and pulled upward with force. The dense sound of chains rang out continuously. Flames in the underground pit churned violently like a storm-tossed sea, and waves of incomparably powerful aura spread from within. Han Li and the others were struck by this surge of air, and could not control themselves at all. Unable to stabilize their bodies, they were thrown about and slammed hard into the surrounding walls. Within the underground pit, the crimson flames gradually died away, while the black fire waves surged violently upward instead, roaring like a geyser. The cracks in the earth spread rapidly and soon extended beyond the hall. On the plaza outside the hall, Inshu had already withdrawn the dark prison, and the shadows that had filled the sky were gone. Behind him, 8 enormous arms condensed from dense shadow stretched into the air. Each giant hand grasped a vital point on the body of the Black Torch Dragon transformed by Bailey Yen. The Black Torch Dragon had clearly lost all ability to fight. Its entire body hung limp, covered in enormous horrifying wounds. Black blood trickled from its slightly open dragon mouth, and it was barely alive. Not far opposite it, inside a black cage formed from countless interwoven wooden vines, a petite figure was imprisoned. However, black ghost vines were wrapped all around her body, making it impossible to see her clearly. Deep, rumbling vibrations continuously came from underground. More and more cracks spread from inside the hall like a spiderweb, running across the plaza under their feet and extending toward the outside of the entire palace complex. Soon they occupied an area of several thousand zhang, nearly covering the whole underground space. Dust rose from the ground, and wisps of black karmic fire emerged from the fissures, blooming throughout the underground space like black lotuses. Haha, it's already out good. The Black Torch Dragon's eyes brightened slightly, and it spoke in a halting voice. Elder Inshu. Ghostwood's expression looked somewhat ugly as he turned to Inshu. A pack of ants who don't know whether they're alive or dead. Inshu shouted, fury nearly spraying from his eyes. His expression chilled. His body swayed, and the 8 shadow giant hands behind him suddenly exerted force. There was a tearing sound. A large spray of black blood spilled out like a rain of blood. The body of the torch dragon transformed by Bailey Yen was actually torn into 9 sections by him, as though it were mere cloth or brocade, in an act of pure vented rage. Chunks of corpse fell from midair one after another. A relatively intact dragon head landed beside Inshu's foot, and he raised his foot and crushed it. At the instant it burst apart, a single black shadow shot away close to the ground. Hurry inside. Perhaps there's still time. Although Inshu had already noticed it, he had no time to pay attention to it. He could only roar angrily, his body shooting forward as he charged straight toward the hall entrance.